Aisha, thank you very much for taking the time to join me on the Culture Corner today. We were just discussing then, it's been about 12 months in the making, hasn't it? So it's great to have you here at last. I'm really excited for the discussion today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. Yeah, I was just thinking when I was walking up, 12 months in the making, so I'm glad we're finally here now and having this conversation.
Yeah, perfect. Obviously, we know each other now. We spoke on a number of occasions, but for anyone listening that doesn't know you, give us a little bit about your background and experience, who you are, what you do.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Aisha. So for the last 16, 17 years, I've been working in sort of telco. My bread and butter, I always say, has been sort of operations and process improvement. But over the last sort of 3-4 years, been doing a lot of strategy work around culture and D&I, because it's such an important facet in organizations. And I'm just someone who loves to understand what makes businesses what they are and the people that are within them. And actually, how do we create, great environments for people to be themselves? So that's been predominantly my work over the last 3-4 years. And thankfully I've been, nominated and I've won many awards for that work. So I know that's my niche and I love doing that type of work.
It's good to find your niche, isn't it? And it's something that you love and you're generally excited about. And I'm excited to have you on because it's a subject that we've not touched much on the podcast. So it's going to be great to dive into it. So we're going to look at all things D&I, cultural transformation and change, because I know you've been involved in that. Yeah. One thing I wanted to mention, I noticed you were recognised as one of the 50 most influential Muslims. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah, how did that come about? That's brilliant.
So that came about from my work as the chair of the Ethnic Diversity Network in Openreach. So top 50 influential Muslim of 2024. But I think this year's got to be the best one that I've had so far. Which was in March. So I won the D&I Leader of the Year for Yorkshire.
Oh, wow.
And that's a massive thing for me. So I was nominated last year, but I didn't win.
Right.
But this year, I took that trophy. So for Yorkshire. So it's a massive deal. Just goes to show that, kind of working on D&I initiatives and culture change. My workplace used to be just down the road here. Yeah. So, colleagues in Leeds and then colleagues across the UK, but the work that I've done here has got me recognised. So I took that trophy.
Fantastic.
Really proud.
Brilliant. And is that was something that you got put forward for from your work at BT, was it?
Well, I actually don't know who nominated me.
Do you not? No way, seriously?
I have no idea who nominated me, and no one will tell me who nominated me. All I know is that I got the email to say that you've been nominated, and then just please make sure that you are here. And I got told you need to be there.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, okay. So it was at the the Royal Armouries in March, Wow, 2 days before my birthday. So it was a nice icing on the cake.
Fantastic. And that's extra special, isn't it, being nominated for it, and by somebody you don't know, by obviously one of your peers as well. So fantastic. Yeah. We'll dive into to plenty of topics today, but I was thinking to start with, what would you say is a good culture? What do you think? We talk about Culture Corner. So what makes a good culture? What is a good culture to you?
So in the work that I've done, culture for me is that you live and breathe by what the company's values and behaviours are, and it's a way of doing things. And I definitely seen that in Openreach, and especially when I moved into my new role a couple of years ago as a culture manager, that we had this set of behaviours and values. And then it was about understanding that the programs that underpin those have to sit along those values and behaviors. Otherwise, how are you going to create a culture where it feels one? And culture is the thread, isn't it, on everything that we do. And it should come to a point where when you're thinking about culture, you understand, what do we stand for? How do we operate? How do we look after our customers? How do we look after each other inside our workplace? What does it mean for the business? So it's about aligning to what the overall business strategy is, or the organizational strategy, and actually how do you play a part, and how do you get your people to play that part? And I think a lot of things that I've seen, not just in my last organization, but organizations that I've worked in my career, is people don't like things getting done to them. And that's where you start to see culture kind of being is something being done to us rather than actually including people, in that change. So culture is important to have people taking them on a journey with you. So if you've got ideas or concepts or a program or something's coming up, it's always a great idea to tap into, either engagement champions or culture champions or ERGs in your company to understand how do we actually co-create some of this stuff together. Because I think when you co-create and have people involved, that's when actually you don't even have to talk about culture. It just becomes the norm, without having to use that word.
Yeah, definitely. If you get people involved from early stages, they feel part of it. They've got a say in it. They can influence it. And like you said, it's an easier process to take them on that journey.
Yep.
So fantastic. So was it? I know obviously Openreach, huge organisation. Was it quite difficult to create one culture, if you like, rather than having it can easily drop into sort of little subcultures, can't it? And was it your responsibility to really drive that culture, or was it across a number of senior leaders?
So, to give you an idea, in the area that I worked in, the business unit that I was in was around 13,000 people in one business unit, and we had 3. So the whole entire makeup of the organization back then was about 36,000. So if you take one part of that, that's about 13,000, and within that we had about 2,000 leaders, ranging from sort of directors or any type of leader in that business unit. And you're right, you are going to find pockets of culture where it works really, really well, and pockets where it doesn't. And I do think sometimes it does come down to leadership capability, people that are in positions and hold positions in there. My job when I came into my role was to lead a D&I program, and that was called Connect with Respect. And it was kind of like a follow-on program to something that was done previous to it. So it was called inclusive leadership, but it didn't really delve into some of the topics that the program that I led did. So for example, creating the environments within your teams, when you're having team meetings, huddles, helping leaders with, cascade packs, to open that conversation up. So that program went to just under 2,000 leaders.
Wow.
But at each point at the trial, like at pilot, then going, to, actual national rollout, there was a lot of stuff that we had to do to change the language, to make sure that it goes with our values and behaviors, because again, you have to thread, if you want true culture, and people to live and breathe it, you need to have that thread going in. But the program, got great senior leadership buy-in. Our MD, bought into it. We had an executive sponsor. But yeah, we did have challenges. I'm not gonna lie. The challenges sometimes, I think, people don't think that there's an issue within your team, my team's fine, they're getting on with, their work, this, that and the other. But I think when we delve more into the sort of belonging piece, then belonging means that actually I'm not just a number. Yes. And I'm just talking broadly now, that in a broader term, in organizations, even myself as an individual don't want to be seen as a number. I want to be seen as someone that's a contributor, that, I'm helping the organization achieve X, Y, or Z. And I think the workforce has now started to move in that way as well.
Yeah.
And I think now it's quite easy for people to go off sick, and things like this. I know we're probably going to talk about psychological safety at some point, and all these things are interlinked with each other.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think if you work in a very small organization where you've got, 2,000-3,000 people, I do personally think it's quite easy, to land culture in a way that you want to. But when you've got big organizations, it's a challenge. And I think it'll always be a challenge.
Yeah, definitely. It's like moving an oil tanker, isn't it? And I understand that sometimes you can get lost. You can feel like a number on a spreadsheet, but they said to feel that belonging part of it, you need to know how your piece of work impacts not just the team, but the business overall, don't you? You need to be weaved into that story, really.
Yeah.
So if we kick off and start about D&I.
Yep.
Yeah, so just at the absolute basics for anyone listening who thinks, I need to understand more about D&I. What is diversity and inclusion?
So let me ask you the question. What do you think diversity, equity and inclusion means?
Oh, thanks for that. I think I think basically it's creating an environment. I suppose it interweaves into psychological safety, doesn't it? Maybe a little bit. Create an environment where people can be themselves at work, feel a belonging within the team and the environment they are. But I think diversity and inclusion is enabling, bringing on board people from alternative backgrounds. You know, whether that's social and economic backgrounds, whether it's different races, different religions, I suppose different educational backgrounds. It's giving people from diverse communities and backgrounds an opportunity in roles, I suppose.
Yeah. So
how's that?
No, that's good. No, it's I think there's not a right or a right or a wrong answer. It's how people perceive, you know, what D&I is. And I think when you're someone that's operating in that space and you're working very closely in it, then you get to understand the sort of makeup of what this means and actually what does it mean in a broader context in an organization. So I know I was just saying to you earlier before we came on, if we just strip it down, it just means equal opportunities for all.
Yeah.
You know, that's basically what it comes down to. And I know there's a lot of thought leaders in the sort of inclusion space that talk about this as well. You know, the D&I is just basically strip it back as equal opportunities. I think now D&I is kind of broken down into pieces, you know, diversity meaning that the diversity of people in communities and individuals that intersect as well. What does that look like and what does that mean for our workforce? Equity is just giving everyone a fair chance, you know, to succeed. And inclusion, I think more now the language is changing, you know, from sort of D&I, especially from when I've seen it, now to sort of inclusion and belonging. And I think if you do think about it, inclusion should be the thing that should be highlighted from my personal view, because inclusion just means that you're including everyone.
Yeah.
And then within that, then you are creating policies or whatever that may look like for the individuals that sit within that to make sure that everything is fair. Yeah. Basically, that's what it's coming down to. Because certainly when I think of diversity, I think of the makeup of people in terms of, you know, race or ethnicity. And I don't know whether that's because I'm someone who's from an ethnic minority. Maybe the way that I see it. You know, maybe ask someone else. That's why I asked you, what do you think? If I was to ask someone else, what do you think of diversity? You know, they may talk about, you know, a belonging that from their community. So it's just, I think, how you see it and the way that you've done it. But strip it down, equal opportunities is what it comes down to.
Do you think in the current environment, we were talking a bit about this, so do you think in the current environment, current climate, that people either with D&I and straight away they're thinking ethnicity?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. And I've often heard, you know, comments, you know, especially organizations at the moment are looking at sort of gender diversity. You know, your male to female split. Yeah. Which is great because then, you know, you're supporting women, you know, back into a workplace or supporting women through promotion and career, you know, so it's great that companies are looking at that. But I think personally, I feel like that's just the surface. Like, what about other people then? Yeah. You know, that sit within that. So, you know, I'm someone who's female, but I'm also, you know, someone who's from South Asian background. Yeah. I'm also someone who's Muslim, you know, a visible faith, you know, I can't hide it. Yeah. You know, so it's the layers. Yeah. You know, and often when I hear people talk about D&I or things that are happening in their organization, it seems like we're not moving. Mm. We're not moving. We're talking about the same thing over and over again. Yeah. And I don't know whether that is because do organizations actually know how to make that shift? So then, do you need to have D&I specialists in your organization to help with that? Because I do see D&I, people operating in this space as quite a specialized niche. And I think there's one thing that brings D&I practitioners together, which is lived experience. And boy, I have a lot of lived experience. I never used to wear a headscarf 15 years ago. So I could tell you stories of not even being stereotyped 15 years ago to now when my headscarf came on, and the things and the challenges that I've seen, and in the current climate, it's a very scary place to be at the moment with everything that is going on politically. So absolutely. Does that mean D&I is going to die, or is it going to come back? Because I personally think it's going to have to come back. And currently I'm working, with Dr. Zia Ahmed, MBE for Equality X, and we're looking at more interfaith.
Right, okay,
Because I've seen a bit of a gap, and he has, I'm working with him. Even in my work, we look at D&I in terms of characteristics of individuals. But in my chair role, I had to also think about religious aspects for people as well. And I've often said anyone that is chairing a ethnicity network has got a really hard job, because you've got to think about ethnicity, race, religion, culture, heritage. It's not like, gender, where it's, male, female, and you could add more into that, or the LGBTQ plus community, Yes, if you look at it from an intersectionality lens, then yes, you'll add more facets into it. But I think anything to do with like a race type of network, there's so much to consider. And now, I'm going to quickly touch on the riots that happened last year. That was the worst thing I ever encountered, having to see it play out on the news, actually living in a city where this stuff was going on, and shops being looted and being burnt. To actually hearing through other people that a family member, where I saw, a video on TikTok, was actually someone's family member whose car got absolutely trashed by people, dragged out their car. And, when it's so close to home, plus then actually seeing it in the workplace where people are absolutely petrified to come to work. And, and I always maintained that it's affecting everyone. So allies, if you're a person of color, yes, I'm Asian, now if I didn't wear my headscarf, you wouldn't be able to tell whether I'm a Muslim or a Hindu or a Sikh or a Christian, but it's the color of what people were seeing, and then automatically assuming, right, we're gonna go for you, sort of thing, and people from Christian faith and Jewish colleagues, everyone was feeling it. Everyone was feeling it.
It's a difficult time, wasn't it?
And it feels like it's bubbling. I certainly feel it myself.
Do you think can you feel it again?
I do. So then it's about organizations must have learned from what happened last year. The safety for their people, the safety for people that are working out in visiting customers' houses, depending on what sector you're in and what you're doing and how you're serving your customers, and putting up safety policies in for your people. So hopefully, I'm hoping, touch wood, that nothing like this comes about, or anything of another nature comes about, but hopefully organizations will be a little bit more prepared, which is why it's important to understand sort of interfaith now, as well as in organizations, to understand that actually people don't want to bring their religious views into work, but it just takes one person to say something and it becomes a religious, debate, internal work. And that's one topic I've stayed away from. I don't engage in that dialogue because I just don't think it's needed in the workplace. But what I do believe is organizations having an understanding of what it means to people who follow certain faiths.
Exactly. At least a base level understanding of it. Religion and politics are two deadly topics, aren't they? You want to stay away from. So, for anyone listening down to get an understanding of what D&I is, why is it important?
Yeah.
And also from somebody maybe within the business thinking about this, what knock-on effects and benefits does it have?
So having been someone as a leader and done recruitment and had led very, very diverse teams, one thing it's shown is that when you have an understanding of different people's thinking process and how they process, things in their own way and their lived experience, these are things that come into a workplace that really help understand innovation. And looking at things from a different lens, where it's really, really helped. And I can give you examples of myself here as well, where, before I was a manager, I was an agent. I started from roots working up, but being able to, speak to a customer who doesn't speak English or is not really great at English, but speaks Punjabi, I've managed to do full diagnostics checks of broadband in fluently in my language.
Yeah.
And so what does that mean then? It means that customers retain. Customers understand that actually this company actually has people working in there that are, Asian or China, whatever it might be, that actually it must be a really good company if they've got, people working there. So I think from a talent perspective, if you I shouldn't say showcase, because we're not here to be showcased.
Yeah,
we're here to kind of be there, we're representing an organization, and the company should recognize that, we've got these women or male or these individuals in our organizations, that are doing some really great things here, and actually using that as a bit of a publicity thing as well, that, we attract really great people into our workplace. You should come and join us as well.
Yeah.
So retention, is one thing. Recruiting is another thing. Innovation, when you're looking at customer demographics, or you've got a new product or service that's coming out and it's going to, you're going to trial it in an area. It might be an area, I know we were talking about Birmingham, for example, you may have someone that's in your team that actually you think is a really great fit that could actually go out and have focus groups with people to understand, if this offering is going to help. So there's tons and tons of things. And I don't know the percentage, but I know McKinsey and Co have done lots of research into it, that, when you have diverse hires and diverse talent in your organization, productivity and performance of an organization is a lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think it impacts the profit of the business as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That increases. And I think you're right. It's a huge value add, isn't it?
Yeah.
Use the knowledge and the skill sets of people from diverse backgrounds to add to what you're doing, and to give your customers greater experiences, like you said there. And it's a huge plus. Like you said, having for people from different backgrounds, different ways of thinking. I gave you the example that you're 15. If you built a team of 15 Adrians, you'd never innovate. You'd always get the same thing, and it'd always be like an echo chamber. But if you truly want to improve, I suppose, as a business, as a team, as a leader, and to be challenged and to innovate, then you need those diverse teams, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing just on this as well is that, still now we still struggle to see representation in really senior leadership roles in organizations. And I've often said, and I've used it as a tagline, there's people that say, well, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I try and live by a rule that if I can't see it, then I'm going to be it.
Yeah.
And I think you need to have a bit of a mindset change on this.
Yeah.
That a lot of people talk themselves out of opportunities because they just feel like, well, it doesn't belong. I don't belong there. But going back to, what we were talking about before, like people being hired on merit, etc. Totally agree that that's how it should be. So if people work hard and they can demonstrate that they have the skills, the knowledge and the capability of doing a role, then why are you talking yourself out of it? If you've got it, you'll get it. It's as simple as that.
Exactly. I think it's I did a podcast last year and I talked to somebody, a company called Glean in Leeds. They work in the educational tech sector, and we were talking about inclusive hiring processes, neurodivergence, that kind of thing, and to the point of giving interview questions before you attend an interview, and things like that. And it's we broke it down to talking about the written adverts. You're putting adverts out. Well, I think I'll get this wrong, but it was something along the lines of a man, if they've only got half the skills, will just apply for that role anyway. But a female, for example, will need to have all those skills in order for them to apply for the role. So we're talking about stripping out the advert and just what are actually the key fundamentals for the role. Forget all the fluff and everything else that goes around it. What are just the key skills? And just having that out there to encourage more people from different backgrounds to apply for the role.
Yeah. I think we often forget that actually a lot of the skills that we need don't actually always need to come from a workplace.
Yeah.
So for example, leadership skills. If you're a family person and you've got kids, you need to have great leadership skills because you're coaching. You're supporting. So if you've got a child who's, that's fallen down, they've been running and falling down, you're not going to scold them, are you? You're going to coach them, like, what happened? Why were you running fast? What are you going to do next time? You're going to be careful, aren't you? What are you going to do? We forget. That actually these capabilities, we've actually got them from home. Time management. I don't know if I've got a teenager and trying to get her out of bed, to get to school, so you've got to be really militant, time, organization, you got to get to school drop, work, lunch, all this kind of stuff. It's militant. So you can demonstrate you have, time management skills, resilience. How many things do we go through home, something happening to someone or a friend or upset, you're going through something, but you have to lift yourself up. You've got a network of people. There's your resilience piece. So there's a lot that actually we do, but it's because we don't see them as core skills. We sometimes often forget that actually this is a skill, to get my daughter out of bed on time, to make sure she's in school at the right time. Coaching, mentoring, it's just constant. We're always doing it, but we always seem to think that we have to make sure that in a work context, and yes, you do. I mean, I wouldn't go into an interview and say, right, my time organized, I get my daughter. It wouldn't be that, but it's showing that actually you do have them, but you're using them. It's just that you forget. It's a really good point. You see those as life skills, don't you? Rather than that's transferable because I do that at work, or I could use those experiences in work as well. So it's a really good point. I never thought of that. That's a really good point. Thinking about getting my girls out of bed in the morning, it's a nightmare. Anybody who's listening to this is thinking, right, okay, D&I, right. How do I do it? I need a D&I strategy. I need a D&I strategy. So what would you say are the core elements to a D&I that make a successful D&I strategy, and how would you go about implementing it? So it depends now where you are in your journey. But if I give you an example of, in the way that we did things and the way that I did as part of my chair role, more specifically, is to look at the data and what does the data tell you. Because I was looking at sort of the ethnic diversity network, it was more around understanding the experiences of our ethnic minority colleagues in our business, including our sort of Black heritage colleagues as well. Understanding, so you need to understand what makes up your organization. So what percentage of individuals do you have that sit in different characteristics, or, so understand your makeup. First of all, what makes you your company. The second thing would be is then if you've got ERGs, use them as the source of voice, because ERGs are the voice of the people. So I was the voice of the people. It wasn't a paid job, it was a voluntary job. But what it got me to do was to get really close to the ground, and understanding people, what they're saying, what's going on. And I think what you do need to do is not just have a look at sort of senior level, you need to go at every level and understand what is happening at every level of your organization. And you need feedback as well. So key things is, what is the makeup of your organization? What is your organizational strategy? What is it that you're trying to aim for? So if you've got D&I targets, then what are those targets? Is it more ethnicity hires? Is it more, are you going for more of a gender split? So by 2027, you want to have X amount of ethnicity hires or diversity split or or disability. You've got to understand what it is that you're trying to achieve, because that information is public, and most organizations publicize their D&I strategy or what they're trying to do. So once you've understood what it is, you're going to publicize it, so that you've got to make sure you're on point and stuff. Your ERGs definitely support you with this. You'll have an employee survey that you do internally. So every organization do like a pulse check, pulse survey. Normally they're done once a year, but they can be done once every 90 days. So you get them 4 times. You do them 4 times a year. You'll do a really long one. The organizations do a really, really long one the first time round, and then after 3 months you might just get a short 10, 12 questions as to temperature check. Okay, so what's going on here, and then what's happening now, and that will give you the data and the comments as well. The comments are the most important things as well. So what are people feeling, what they're saying to you. And sometimes it depends as well that I'm trying to think of my own ways of doing it, and it is a minefield because you don't know where to start sometimes, because there's just so much. So you really do have to pin it to the key 3-4 things that you're trying to achieve. And then from an ERG perspective, what is it from the networks that we can help towards that?
It's all about getting the feedback from the business, isn't it? Understand what you're trying to achieve and then get the feedback from the business. So your ERGs, your people are going to communicate with the teams on the ground, if you like, or the employees, and then filter that information back up. And then you're doubling down on that feedback through the questionnaires, are you as well?
Yes, the questionnaires. We did surveys from our network, and then all the other networks did that as well to get feedback from their membership. What are we doing really good? What are the missing things? When we went out with our ethnic diversity network, it was clear that people were saying, that we need to really have a look at intersectionality, as a piece, so that's the work that got me the awards as well. So, my committee then reflected what we were trying to achieve. So what I didn't want it to be was a network that just has people that look like me or from the same color. It's more around, we've got allies in our network as well. And, we did have 2 non-Asian people who joined that network as allies. That wanted to really spread the word and help and understand that the EDN means this, not just because you feel an affinity to it, that's the reason why you join. I had someone, I had 2 people that were from the LGBTQ plus community that was South Asian and Arab, so sometimes you have to kind of put your money where your mouth is.
Back it up, don't you?
So, and luckily, in the organization that I was in, I lead with authenticity. So what you see with me is what you're going to get. And a lot of people, when they knew that I was going to go in for the chair role, and if I was to be elected, that, they had expressed that they wanted to join. So already I had a bit of people wanted to join. So by the end of me leaving, we had a mixed, just like the teams that I've led, there were a mixed bunch of people in there that bring a very different element and a different thought pattern and a different understanding. Okay, so the ethnic diversity is going to celebrate, for example, let's say South Asian Heritage Month. Actually, what does that mean to people that are not from this community, but how can they get involved? And how can they learn, and what do they want to learn? So that we tailor the event or the topics to discuss so that leaders and people can take something away. So like a call to action. So those are the type of things. So and I'm saying look at the data, but then also look at what the data doesn't tell you as well. So what are you missing? And that was something that someone had said, a senior leader in one of the conferences that I went to London about 6-7 weeks ago. She was on a panel and she said, we often look at the things that, data that's in front of us. And if you've got 80% of the data, but 20% doesn't tell you anything, then you should be looking at that 20% to understand what does that tell you.
It's a good point. Really good
and
point.
Is there anything that you can do to to work on that.
Yeah.
And we also have to understand as well is that there's going to be people that are not bought into this belonging and diversity and inclusion. A lot of, people do think it's a tick box exercise. People think, oh, well, you were hired because you were a female, or you were hired because, you're an ethnic minority, and they needed to make sure that they got a tick against that and stuff. So we've got to kind of get away from that mentality. So it's, again, just understanding what is it that you're trying to achieve, what is your organization trying to achieve. Look at the data, what it tells you. Look at what the data doesn't tell you, and have focus groups with your people at all different levels, and listen to what they're saying, and then take all that back, and then come with a strategy that really helps support the organization.
Yeah, and go from there. Do you think the people that just think it's a tick box is because it's a lack of understanding of what the business is, lack of understanding of D&I, but lack of understanding of what the business is trying to achieve? Where if there was clearer communication, maybe, that it would be easier for them to get on board with it? Or do you think it's just ignorance or stubbornness?
I think that type of thinking is normally someone that's been there a long time. And they will have probably seen initiatives come and go. So they will have seen things being, this is what we're going to do, is like the next best thing that we're going to do, right? And I've seen it myself in my career where there's a big campaign about it. People get bought into it and they think, oh, change is coming. This is really good for us. Yeah. And then it happens. And then the comms piece, it just starts to drop. People don't know what's happened to it. Yeah. Often I've heard people in my career say, oh, such and such, wasn't that happening like 6-7 months ago? Didn't they do like a big launch for it? Like, what's happened to it now? Yeah. Oh, I don't know, actually. I don't know what's going on with it. But then we also have to understand as well that organizations are evolving, so things are changing all the time. So there might be a structure change or something's going on. But again, the comms piece is not there to let people know. And I think the other thing as well is that, might be controversial, is sometimes people have gone for promotions themselves and not got the job. Yeah. And so then if someone has got a role, let's say someone who joined the company maybe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, have now got the job and they've been there for 10 years and they've been constantly trying and they've just not got their career where they wanted to. Yeah. It's that sense of sort of resentment and bitterness, isn't it? Yeah, that you only got it because you're a woman or blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Hence why sort of feedback is so important, and and organizations are actually supporting people as well through development. Yeah. It shouldn't be, well, I've applied for a job. Okay, I didn't get it. Okay, I've asked for feedback. I think a lot of people forget, and I think I learned the hard way as well myself, where I've gone for roles, I've then asked for feedback, and then I've done nothing with it. Yeah. You know? Yeah. Sometimes you have to keep knocking the door. Yeah, that's right. I want this role in the next 6-9 months. Like, what do I need? You've told me now here. How can you, Mr. Leader or Mrs. Leader, support me in maybe gaining some of these skills that maybe the next time if something comes, maybe not in your team, but in someone else's team, that at least I can show that actually, yes, I came for this role, 9 months ago, and this is what I've done in the meantime. And I did that with my chair role, because when I went for it initially, I didn't get it. Ah, right, okay. I didn't get it. And so I asked for feedback, and I got the feedback. But what worked for me was I strategically moved roles from an operational role more into a strategy, because that was the thing that was missing. Ah, right, okay. And then having moved into a strategy role, it gave me an understanding then how do you lead and manage people that don't actually directly, report into you. You've got to manage different stakeholders, matrix management, senior leadership management. There's so much that you've got to do. Those were the things that were missing, and part of the chair role is that you've got to be able to influence up. But then you also have to, because you're speaking to MDs, your sponsors an MD. I was really thankful and lucky that I managed to have, a couple of conversations with our CEO. If I was in my other job, I wouldn't have never had that opportunity. So sometimes it's about being tenacious and being knocking on the door as well. You have to lead it.
Definitely. I think you're right there. And I think it's two of those things, isn't it? If we go for a job, I don't get it, you can have that negativity. But if I go for the job and I don't get it and you get it, I ask for feedback. The managers can get away from the individuals having negative feelings by providing proper structured feedback. If you follow this path, Adrian, next time you'll get it. And you think, oh, right, okay, I can clearly see the reason behind that. It allows you to progress, but it mitigates any, or probably would go a long way to mitigating any negativity as well, wouldn't it?
And it removes that bias then as well, in terms of like how the recruitment process works or how you've done things, what you've done, but there's still a lot of mindset shift to do.
Well, thinking about that, as you're going on this, as you've building your D&I strategy and you're moving it forward, and you said as your chair role, you have to manage upwards and down as well. Have you had any tactics, or how have you engaged stakeholders at different levels of the business on that journey?
So one thing I've learned in my role is that no one has the answer. Yeah. And especially in sort of the senior leaders that I've worked with, is they don't have the answers. We're all trying to work out what is the best thing to do. It's really interesting when you talk about D&I. I think people think that, managing big teams and different people and having great leaders is like the winning, like that's enough. It's not. It's about them constantly understanding like your people and the makeup of your people and what makes people tick and what doesn't, and understanding, if there's religious, cultural stuff happening, then how do you, what allowances can you make and what accommodations can you make? There's those type of things. And what I've seen, especially like working with senior leaders, is not to give them the answer, but it's more of a working in partnership, that we're going to figure it out together. That we're going to do it together. But the accountability and the commitment has to come from you, though. It can't come from me. So as a chair of a network, I can't go out and say, well, I'm giving you a commitment that senior leaders are going to do this, this, and this, and this. It has to come from that leader, because people have to believe that you are bought into actually wanting to drive change. People know I want to drive change because I'm doing this role.
Because you're in the,
I'm already in the driving seat. But it's about, and a lot of people look up to their leaders. And I think leaders need to be more vulnerable.
Which rolls back into psychological safety, doesn't it? Which we'll pick up on as well. But it'll fall at the first hurdle, won't it, if the leader's not bought into it? Because people will be looking up at you and go, say, for example, if you were the leader not in the chair, looking up at you and go, Aisha's not really bought into this, so hang on, well, why am I buying it? Why am I buying into this? And then it falls apart. So.
And you've got to understand the language. Like, let's be honest, like senior people, they're all about the business performance, the outcomes, the money saving, what can you do here, this and this and this and this. So sometimes it's about then putting some of your strategy to understand that actually, if you created belonging, for people. So I'll give you an example, of something, that helped us really get, our award for Best Ethnicity Network of the Year last year, was that basically allowing, people to take 2 absences that are D&I related to something that they wanted to do. So although it was spearheaded by our network, it was actually for everyone. So, our key gold events are like Black History Month and South Asian Heritage Month. Neurodiversity Network will be, the Neurodiversity Week. You've got all these, there's about 12, events through 6 networks. So there could be a colleague who, might be from the LGBTQ plus community, but then also could be someone, who is from a South Asian community. So for example, then they'll want to go to a Pride event, but then also would want to come to a South Asian Heritage Month because that's where they see their belonging. So, it was about stripping down the strategy. Like we had loads, we had about probably 15, 16 things that we wanted to achieve before I became the chair.
Wow.
And then we stripped it down to 4 pillars. And in those 4 pillars, we had 3 things in there. But there were things that actually we were doing before, but we just needed to make it a little bit more smarter and slick and neater, that it became a bit of a BAU practice. And then there were some new things in there. So the new thing was then allowing colleagues to be able to take absences, 2 absences a year to go and do a D&I related event. But the language then to kind of talk about how do we do this with our sponsor was that, if you create this, we are going to have to take engineers off, to come away from customers. They won't be able to go and serve customers, repair or fix a line. So actually this is going to be the cost. So if we took, 20% of engineers off, actually you're going to lose, I don't know, I can't remember the figures on it, but let's just say for argument's sake, £300,000 that day.
Yeah.
But what we will see is people will feel that belonging. Yeah. If their manager said, I've got a job and they're clocking off at 4 o'clock and a job's come in, a customer needs, they're a vulnerable customer, for example, I can guarantee you that engineer is going to say, I'll take that job.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Yeah.
Now, imagine if 20% of your engineers equated to, I don't know, let's say 300 engineers. I'm just saying for it. That's 300 engineers taking an extra job that probably would have gone in tomorrow that they're going to do now.
Yeah. So
do you know what I mean? So you're saving a cost now. You're allowing more customers, to be served tomorrow. But then what does that do? A lot of organizations have engagement and inclusion scores. You're going to see your people are happy. And I think in the D&I space, you have to accept that not all numbers are to business performance or money related. It's all about feeling. And how does someone feel when they come into work?
Yeah, the belonging aspect.
Exactly. Because you'll see people coming early or you'll see people leaving late. People committing that I'll get that done, don't worry. That's a feeling, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because people feel that actually, do you know what?
Yeah.
I get to do these things that make me who I am.
Yeah.
And my senior leadership allow me. I've got this great opportunity. Next week I'm not going to be working. I'm going to go to this event that I've been wanting to go. I've been looking forward to it all year. So it's about then looking at your inclusion scores and engagement scores and seeing them move up, which then gives you that indication that actually your people are happy.
Yeah.
Not everything is about money. Of course, the business is there to run, to make money. But with these little things, you'll see your return on investment in other ways.
Well, as I think we were talking about it outside or when we did our walk, people feel happier, they feel safer. Like you said, they get into these things you do. So they get that sense of belonging. And again, I don't know the figures, but when people have that sense of belonging, it washes back to increased productivity, doesn't it, as well? So like you say, we are losing X thousands of pounds for people going to do their 2 days or the 1 day, whatever they decide to do. But it washes back with the additional productivity over time.
Yeah.
Which is, and I suppose it's painting that picture as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is
so,
good.
Yeah.
One thing you mentioned earlier that I wanted to ask you about, how important is allyship in something like this?
It's really important.
You did a big talk on it, didn't you? So.
Yeah, it's really, really important. Because I think people forget they've got certain privileges. And sometimes I think people should use that privilege to support other people.
Yeah.
I can give you an example of something that I wish I had an ally back in the day. So, and I've talked about it I talk about it quite often. So I was traveling back from Warrington. So I used to work in Warrington and I was at the train station. So I don't know if you remember the days, but I remember the days where if you were given a laptop, you were seen as you've made it. Yeah, you're part of the management team now. Like we had desktops, to come into work and you had a desktop. But if you were given a laptop, it didn't matter what it was. If it was a brick, it didn't matter. Yeah. You got a laptop, you was in there. And I remember that day I got a laptop, right? So they gave me a bag and they gave me a backpack, and normally they give you a backpack.
Yes.
And this was soon after I started wearing a headscarf as well.
Right.
Okay, so I was on public transport. So going to the train station and I've got a backpack on. So now you can imagine what you're seeing now, right? Yeah. Someone who wears a headscarf and I've got a backpack on, and I'm walking, pacing up and down the platform. Then I remember, I need to just check something on my laptop and I'm waiting for the train. It's going to be another 15, 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I take my laptop out of this backpack, and then on the lid, it's like information. It's like IS.
Oh, right. Yeah,
right?
yeah.
IT systems or whatever. It says IS.
Yeah.
Right. So this is not stacking good against me, right?
No.
But what I'm seeing is people across the other platform with their phone and taking photos, and actually people moving away from me. So basically it came to a point where I was just sat on a bench on my own, and it was busy. It was like a commuter train home, when people are finishing work. You see all the people just down one side, and I'm there sat on the bench with my laptop trying to check something so I can put it back and put it in a backpack. After that day, I refused to have a backpack. I don't care. I have my own bag. But that's when I wish someone came up to me and just sat next to me.
Yeah. I was going to say, all you needed was someone to come and sit next to you, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's all I needed.
Wow, how long ago was that?
So, I thought it would have been about 13 years ago.
Wow.
13 years ago, yeah.
Wow.
And that's the first time I've actually felt, being someone who's British born Muslim, I don't feel like I belong.
No.
That was the first time I felt it.
Yeah.
So now when I do talks about allyship, I actually wear, like a long dress.
Yeah.
Long dress, backpack, and I just walk up to a stage. I don't say anything. But it gets people thinking. And afterwards, I've had people say, I didn't understand what you were doing. And some people have said, I knew exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
So it's, and I should name it actually, not allyship, it should be, it's like, what do you see when you look at me?
Yeah.
So it's about
it starts to get the cogs turning, doesn't it? Yeah.
But you only need to come and talk to me and you'll see that I speak.
Yeah.
Like, English, I'm not someone from back home, but it's about challenging those stereotypes, but challenging people's perceptions as well. And allyship is really important because what you're saying is that basically you're not standing for any type of behavior in a workplace, that actually you're going to call it out.
Yeah.
If something doesn't feel right and you see your colleague next to you feeling like really they've got upset, or you can tell actually that did not go down well.
Yeah.
As an ally, you say that's not cool. Like, what made you say that?
Yeah.
And it's not even it's not shouting or screaming. I think we also need to understand is like, why did you say that? Like, where's that come from? Because a lot of people's upbringing sometimes is the way that they perceive the world, if you know what I mean.
That's where it comes from.
I teach my daughter that you accept everyone as who they are and for what they are. We don't, there is no discrimination. This world is made up of different people and we should embrace that. So I teach my daughter as well, that you keep it with everyone and you learn and you seek to understand their perspective and where they're coming from. And sometimes it's just an education piece.
Yeah. Well, you need to call it out, don't you? And like you said, to get an understanding, where's that come from? That's not right. Because that's probably the norm. That type of comment, probably the norm for that individual. So and also get them thinking. Yeah.
Often I'm laughing because often I'm asked about my headscarf and I say, before you ask me anything, no, my husband did not tell me to wear it. So let's squash that all together. I'm not oppressed. But it's to seek to understand. But I welcome those conversations. I love it when people come and ask, because it's a deeper meaning. It's like, I don't know if you can say that they like for like, but when I see people with tattoos, they have a meaning. There's a reason why they have tattoos and what they signify. And I think identity is the same. Identity is to signify who they are as a person. It's just the way that they do it. Some people do it on tattoos. Some people might have a cross. I wear a headscarf. There'll be different ways that people it's their identity and it has a story behind it. And I think when you talk about D&I, inclusion and belonging, it's about understanding where does that identity come from and what makes them them. And then it's understanding then as a workforce, then how do you create that environment? Because I think the thing is, especially when you're servicing or you've got product, your people are going out to different communities. So your workforce has to reflect the community that you're serving as well.
Yeah. Especially for what OpenReach do in the communities that they're in. You're constantly on the front line, aren't you? I suppose. Yeah. Well, you told me before that you didn't used to wear a headscarf.
No.
You haven't always worn one.
No.
So just rolling back to your comment then, what made you pivot? Why do you wear one now?
You will have heard this phrase, lost soul.
Yeah.
I'm a lost soul.
Yeah.
I was a lost soul.
Ah, right, okay.
I was lost. Not that I lost my religion, I just lost my sense of purpose as an individual. And actually, what do I stand for? And what makes me me?
Mm-hmm.
And why am I here? You know, and having been born into a Muslim family, you know, the normal thing is you go to mosque, you learn to read Arabic, you learn to read the Quran, you pray, etc., etc. And there's some elements of the Quran that I don't have a deep understanding of meaning, but what I do understand is that I believe in God, you know, and things that have happened in my life hasn't just happened by coincidence. It's because I've believed and I've prayed for them.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's that thing, isn't it? Is that when seeing is believing, and for me it's that. But back then, I wanted motherhood so bad.
Yeah.
And I was lost, completely lost, and it took me 2 years to get to the point of wearing a headscarf. But when I did, I was like, why did I just not do this sooner? It just felt like it was the right thing. But it was a lot of soul searching, and it was a thing around, I made a deal. It's the way that I describe it. I made a deal with God.
Yeah.
That give me this one thing that I really want in my life.
Yeah.
Because my life will be so complete. And that's like my commitment to my faith will get more stronger. I'll start to wear a headscarf. And then it just happened. Like things changed. Within sort of 6 months it changed. And I remember it was a Ramadan in 2010.
Yeah.
That I started. My headscarf came on then. 2010, 15 years ago. Yeah.
That's interesting. So one of my business partners, Mohammed, lives over in Shipley. He pivoted to become more heavily into his religion around COVID time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, COVID time. He started to take it a lot more seriously. Yeah, and so that was interesting. I think it was one situation where, you know, we work in recruitment, it's sales based, things were really tough, people were losing their job, and sometimes it just takes that, it takes something to happen. I'm thinking, you know, I don't know whether he was praying for things to get better or to improve and then that kind of thing, but he went deeper into his faith, and he follows that now, and he's committed and heavily into it, and it's brilliant. Yeah, it's really good.
I still think that there's a lot more that I could do.
Yeah,
there's still have a lot more to do, but I think I try and strip it down as simple as it can be, in the sense that I don't hurt anyone. I'm not malicious to people. I don't want bad for people. You know, I understand my sense of purpose in life. Why am I here? Yeah. Why am I doing the things that I do? And actually, how do I create a world that's slightly better for people? And that comes through like the work that I do. Yeah. You know, and actually then leaving it in a place where there's really, you know, there's better opportunities for the kids and the next generation that are coming through. It's a deep question, and but I think for me it was to understand, like, why am I here? And Islam tells you why we're here, but I think until you understand why you're here and what you're doing, what your purpose is, I don't think you can ever, you can't live your life just floundering, hoping that things are just you know, they're just a norm, that I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids, and I'll buy a house, and I'm going to get into school, and I'm going to get old. You know, I don't see life that way. I see life that there's an opportunity to create change, and it's about then how do I keep doing it? How do I amplify the voices of those that feel they can't? And not in a negative way, it's just that I never used to be someone that was outspoken. It took a lot of courage
Yeah.
to be able to understand that actually I do have a voice and actually people do listen.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
maybe I'm telling myself that, you know, and people still don't listen,
Yeah.
but I guess I've been privileged enough to be in spaces where my voice is heard. And then it's just about building that momentum and keep going.
Yeah.
You know, so eventually I leave this world in a slightly better place, you know, where opportunities are equal for everyone.
Exactly. And I think that's probably, if you work that back, I think that's probably what took you into your leadership roles, was it? And took you into the D&I space. Is that?
Yeah, I think the leadership aspect was that having been someone where I've wanted someone to believe in me so much that I could be more than what I am, just didn't come to me. Whereas the leadership position allowed me to do that for others.
Yeah.
You know, so I know a lot of people talk about it, that managing and leading are two different things.
Yeah.
You know, leading is actually, you know, coaching, mentoring, getting people to really figure out the answers for themselves by questioning them in a way that actually unlocks their potential and the way that they think about things and the way that they see it. I think sometimes a lot of people, and I do this with my daughter as well, that I try not to get her to think that she's very closed in thinking, that actually, you know, if family have done something in a certain way or your friends are doing things in a certain way, that actually your life is just going to be this way. It's about thinking about the impossible. And I often talk about this. Think about the impossible and then what can you make possible from there. So if you think about the impossible, then you go crazy with ideas, you know, you think about blue sky thinking, people say, you know, like, and then it's about the art of achieving. Then the art of achieving is then actually what resources do you need? What people do you need that will be the lever to help you? You know, you're talking about network. Yeah. You know, network plays a massive part in this. You know, you only need one person that says, actually, I know someone that can help you. And that's it, that's your ticket. And you're away, you know, to start the conversations going. So it's about people understanding that actually they're more than what they think they are, you know. And so then the leadership aspect on it is, you know, it's about unlocking that for people. And there's been people in my journey, in my career, where I still get messages from people on LinkedIn saying, Aisha, I've been promoted again, you know. Aisha, if we didn't have this conversation 7 years ago, you know, where you said, you know, that I should absolutely go for this role, I wouldn't have been here where I am today. And I've got, a lot to thank you for. And what have I done? I've just sat with someone as a leader and they've come to me and they said, Aisha, I'm thinking about applying for this job. Okay, great. Let's have a look at it. Right. What do you think you can take? What do we need to learn? What do we need to do? You know, I'll go speak to that leader, you know, and ask them, right, you know, I've got you as a candidate. What can I do? Can you go and shadow? You know, how do we create the opportunity? And I think as leaders, we're there to facilitate that space.
Yeah, you believed in them, didn't you, as well?
You're there to create that space for them. Or create the path for them. Yeah, it's up to them then how, you know, they've got to go and crack that interview and do. But as a leader, what you're doing is you're making people believe. Yeah, absolutely. I can do a lot more than just sat here doing this, or actually I feel like I haven't got anywhere else to go, or actually I don't understand what my career path looks like. Yeah,
it's a support, creating a belief, helping them along their journey, isn't it? You know, I think I've talked about this in the past. I think in leadership, quite a few people can think, oh, that person's handed in a notice and then they're leaving, and the leader's got a negative connotation, a negative feeling about that. But if you're leading somebody and you're helping them, supporting them, you're giving them the tools, you're helping them on that career path, they are going to leave you eventually. You know, but that's probably because you've done such a good job and you've help them to get to where they want to go, or the next run on the ladder. That was your job. That was a part that you played in it. Yeah. It's not I'm never going to speak to you again, why are you leaving me scenario. It's what you've done to help and support them. Absolutely. And I think, especially if I think about my career early on, it was a very different time back then. It was just, I never saw anything like as a career, seen it as a job. Got a job now, working, getting money in every month, this, that, and the other. I think now people are thinking more about like the career. I'm really invested. You know, a lot of people, you know, got really good degrees.
etc. They want to know, like, actually, if I come into this organization, like, where can I be in the next 5 years,
Absolutely,
10 years and stuff. A lot of companies talk about retention, trying to retain their talent. If you've got really good reward packages, benefits, and actually personal development, I think personal development is a big, big thing. If you've got all them and people are happy, you create the belonging, you create the psychological safety. Your company is actually listed as one of the top 25 best place to work companies. You've got all that. Would you not feel proud that actually I work there? I work for this great company, and whatever the rewards or benefits or whatever they look like, as long as the organization is catering to different things, again, that belonging, I remember, gosh, we're going nearly 20 years now, where every end of the month I used to do a beer bust. But I don't drink beer. I don't go down the pub. Do you know what I mean? But then I'm just giving you an example that 20 years ago, workforces didn't look like what they are today.
It's changing, isn't it? There's more today, but it's definitely changing.
But my team used to be funny, and every time we used to say, let's go out for a meal, Aisha, let's go for an Indian. I'm like, mate, I have an Indian every day at home. Let's go for something different. We thought, but this is how it changes. Like, people actually saying, but it's halal. So you can eat. But it's not only about me, guys. It's about what do you want.
Everybody else.
What do you guys want to eat? Let's go try something different. I can have vegetarian. Like, it's no skin off my nose. But that's the sort of culture and the environment that you create, that people straight away go, it's halal, you can eat it. But I'm just one. There's 20 of you guys. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, let's go somewhere where actually everyone can have a bit of something. So buffets are always like the best place to go. But do you understand, like, that's the sort of thing that the conversations you start having in your team, and it's the first thing that they think about. It's like, can my manager eat? Like, can we do here? Not just like I love curry all the time, but you know what I mean? And it's about creating that environment, like, in your own workplace as well. I've brought in samosas, curry, when it's been Eid, have a taste of my home cooking, and we'll have a team meeting. Actually, we do half an hour, we'll do an hour. We can sit and really have a chat and have some food and stuff. So it's about celebrating those differences. That's where that inclusion piece comes in. But again, I think it's just people are scared. And so when we're talking about diversity and inclusion programs, there are some of the things that you incorporate, so leadership packs, or if Eid is coming, or there's Holi, or there's Diwali, as part of the network, we used to create manager packs and calls so people could come on and listen. We'd maybe get an external guest to come and speak, and what managers can do, have HR present in there as well. So it's about education. None of these things cost money. You have people in your own workforce that can help create ththose things. That's why I said ERGs are quite important part in all this. But having manager support packs, I mean, we took it one step further. In Ramadan, we created immersive experience to mosques. So we had people, sign up, London, Birmingham, different sites. And then it was like a visit to a mosque during lunchtime, an hour and a half. Come and ask you questions, what is Ramadan like, why do we do what we do, etc. So it's about taking it beyond the support packs and actually creating immersive experiences. Actually something that you felt. Now, if you've got people that have gone there, they'll go into their teams. A manager will say, you're going to this, next week, what I'd love you to do is we've got our all hands in 2 weeks' time. I'd love you to talk about what you learned, what can we do, for our colleagues. And that's just how that ripple effect then starts to occur, which was one of the reasons why we created those absences, so that people could come and then start talking about it in their teams. That's free.
It is. You don't have to pay for any external support. You just use the individuals, the resources that are available
and they become like your little champion in inclusion. Like the little champions, within their teams. So when we talk about culture and you have pockets of it, this is how you kind of start driving that behavior, where you've got people from different areas coming. allowing and changing the processes where people do have an opportunity to go and attend different things or learn different things, but then bringing it back and talking about it. We have people from Blackburn, Scotland, London, Wales, Midlands, like all coming, and now they'll all go back out and they'll talk about it. This
Spread
is what
the
I
word.
learned.
So, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's important. I know we've been talking for ages and I've been bending your ear. I've just got a couple of quick questions, then we can wrap it up. You mentioned using data to measure sort of cultural changes, cultural transformations. Are there any specific metrics that people should consider or look into to know or to monitor whether it is being successful?
Yeah, so if I give an example of the program that I led, I only took them down to 3, which was inclusion index, engagement index, and allyship. Because we've got an inclusion ally network in Openreach, so they were like one of 6 that sit with us, and it was really important that to understand that if we're going to take people through this training, how do we measure that actually people have actually listened and actually they understand, different people being vulnerable, how to challenge unconscious bias, how to actually challenge their own bias, all this kind of stuff. And actually then at the end of this, do they say that actually, do you know what, I pledge to be an ally. So if I see behavior or something that doesn't sit right, I'm an ally, so that was added at the end. So there were the 3. And every scorecard, I'm hoping, in an organization will have an engagement score index and they'll have an inclusion. Inclusion is quite important. A lot of companies are now including that as part of their scorecard to measure. So for me, engagement, inclusion, and if you've got any sort of allyship or an ERG or something that supports the allyship to understand that people are actually saying, I'm an ally, then those are the metrics that I worked to.
Okay.
I think the key thing is not to get too metric heavy. It gets too much. And when you're reporting to senior leadership, you want it to be quite clean cut. When I was in change and transformation, I had like project delivery, as my set of metrics, and there were 3. So like the project success. Did we get to all the leaders' success, and then actually how, when we did the face-to-face and online, sort of how much attendance that we had and NPS scores out of each training course that we, so there were 4 modules that were led externally, and then there were the leaders then had to go and deliver them in their own team. So the 4 were all measured. So we measured against the NPS on those external trainers as well, to see whether they actually took anything away, did they learn something new, and actually would they recommend this program to their colleagues to attend, so that was part of the sort of project delivery aspect of it. So
always monitoring it, but also asking for feedback to understand how it lands as well. That's really good. So you have to,
because I think if you go for a program, especially in the D&I space, for all the 4 pilot, like the teams that we did, 4 pilot teams, we did a blend of face-to-face and on like online on Teams. I was on every single one of them with my program team to listen, to hear how it's been delivered, because there were different facilitators delivering it. If I had my time back, what would I do different? I would always encourage to do these things face-to-face. So if you've got a D&I type of training, I would always encourage that they are done face-to-face, because I think when you see the emotion, the conversations, I think with these type of programs, you can't do them quickly either. You have to give them time. Because what might come out of a team might be someone who's been wanting to say something for a long, long time. And actually that training group has created the safe space for someone to speak. And the last thing that you want to do is get the person to talk, and then you cut them and say, well, actually we're out of time now, we need to move on to the next thing. So it's more quality over quantity when it comes to a D&I program. And if you've got a year and a half to deliver it, I'd do 2 years and add that fat
Yeah.
Because we had to change a lot of things at the beginning, again, with that feedback.
Yeah.
Tweak. Okay, let's run it again with the pilot team.
Yeah.
Tweak. Let's run it again with the pilot team. Tweak. To the point where then actually we got what we needed. It got to a really great place. And it was then with the executive sponsor and the stakeholder, like, this is all the things that we've done. But having the stakeholder, like, every 2 weeks to give them updates, so we're already aware of what was going on and what was happening. But it was like, right, we've done all the changes. We're happy now as a program team. Like, we need you there to confirm that you're happy, sign off, and then just do the national rollout. But even on the national rollout, we still took that feedback.
Yeah. So it's like constant feedback loop, but slow and steady to make sure it's fine tuned and it's correct.
Yeah.
Always reverting back to the stakeholder buy-in, if you like, and updates.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it's also about the people that are going through it as well. Like, is this anything different? Have you learned something? Give me your feedback. What do you think we need? Have we missed anything out of this? Having focus groups, we did a load of them, focus groups with the leader and their people that have been on it, that give us feedback.
Right.
So we've done it that way as well. And then just, I think when you deploy it into an operational setting, it's about hand holding as well.
Right, okay.
As well. Leaders, like, talking earlier, some leaders don't know how to open up this conversation. They might have gone into, a full module, program where the facilitator is actually helping and supporting leaders to actually get ready as well to deliver this. But there will be leaders still that will think, I can't do this.
Yeah.
And I can't do this because I know I've got one character in my team who isn't bought into this stuff, and I know he's going to completely challenge the hell out of me.
Yeah.
And how am I going to deal with that? I'm going to look stupid as a leader because I don't know what to say, and he's my friend. Like all these type of things. So it's about then, if you're doing this as a program, then it's also then making sure that you're supporting leaders and giving a space for leaders to come and talk. So we used to have surgery calls and they were in every week. So we used to just jump on. Leaders come in, tell us like what's working, what hasn't worked, and leaders saying, oh, well, I delivered module 1 and it didn't go really well. And then you have other leaders that are probably further ahead. Oh, what happened, mate? Tell me.
They can
And then it's like, well, I can come and help you. So you're creating a bit of a leadership community now. And as a byproduct, what you're also having is people that are really bought into this, saying that I'll help you. This has been really great. My team are loving it. And they can't wait for the next one. So it's about then again creating that little cultures within your leadership community, but it's just creating the space.
Yeah, it's a safe space, isn't it, and a collaborative, supportive space to help people deliver what they need to deliver in an environment where they might well be outside their comfort zone.
And then you've got leaders, coaching leaders. Which they probably wouldn't have ever had an opportunity to do because normally you've got your peers, but you don't really have those conversations, right? And then it's your manager, and your manager might give you feedback and coaching maybe on the things that you've done, but actually peer-to-peer or leadership-to-leadership coaching you don't really get. So you end up learning more, and you just never know where an opportunity comes out. We had leaders that were from one area, like traveling to the other site, to see how they were delivering it, and actually can they take anything away, or vice versa, or actually leaders coming together and saying, well, we're going to be in London, so why don't you bring your team? We're going to be there, and let's deliver it as a whole day thing together. So it's about helping. It's helping one another. But what it allows you to do then is to mix with other people and speak to other people. No one would ever see me because I'm in an office space, but I go around, because of my chair role and stuff. But there used to be often, someone doing a meeting, or they're doing a half a day session on inclusion or inclusive leadership. Aisha, can you join? Yes, I'll come down. Now they've got to know me. They come and speak to me directly. Teams message, hi Aisha, I thought it was great, but I've got a question here. I've got someone in my team, who's Muslim, and on Friday, they go for prayer, etc., etc. What can I do that can accommodate them, or this, that, and the other? So
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's just like it's like a siloed, isn't
just
it?
Formal siloed. And what you've done there, you've broken down the silos and created sort of collaborative environments or environments where people are willing to collaborate and put themselves in different situations, or different learning environments as well, I suppose, isn't it? So there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to take in. But thank you so much for taking the time to speak to me today. It was a really, really insightful discussion on a topic that we haven't touched much. So it was brilliant to have you. Thank you very much.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure. It's been great.
No problem. Thank you.
Thank you.